Can you hear me? Hold on, I can't hear you. Hold on. Let me see. Let's try it now. Still can't hear you. Um, okay. Are you muted?
I'm sorry, I had I pushed the wrong button. It's all my fault.
All right, perfect. There. All right. Now I can hear you great. So
My apologies.
no
Sorry about
worries.
that.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Doing good, thank you.
Good, 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 good. Let's get rid of those. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Um, let's see. How did your deal go that you were going up to LA for last week?
So we ended up having to cancel on Thursday morning because of these fires. So, and fortunately, the house, because it's in Brentwood, so it
Hmm.
ended up getting as they kept expanding the evacuation orders, the mandatory evacuations, it fell into the first mandatory evacuation, and now those mandatory evacuations go all the way to the 405 now. Pretty much all of Brentwood is mandatory evac right now.
Oh wow. I don't
Yeah.
know where, you've got you almost got 100,000 people have been evacuated from these fires.
Yeah.
And like, where are they going?
That's what Sarah and I were talking about that and wondering, like, where did all these people go? Because it's such a a large number of people that have been displaced. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts, and it's also real scary. I two clients up in Pacific Palisades. They're actually in the same neighborhood, like three streets over, so to speak. And we're talking 4 and 5 thousand square foot homes, and they were told to evacuate, and they were maybe 150, 200 yards away from their home, looking back, and they stopped to look, and they just saw, he said my house was gone in what 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes. It was just that hot and that, I was like, wow.
That's
So,
horrible. And like, so you've talked with them. What are they going to do? Are they going to try and stay, rebuild, or do they know yet? Or because that's one of the things I'm wondering what all these people are going to do.
well, I think some people, um, from an insurance standpoint, you know what, whether they had sure if they had insurance, basically insurance replaces the dwelling.
Right.
They'll replace the trees, the bushes, the hedges, and all that stuff, and the dwelling to certain limits. Okay, so it's not like they're going to say, "Oh, you had a $5 million house. Here's a check. Buy."
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't work like that. So, I already talked to one person who knew I used to work for the Automobile Club, and I was around when that earthquake hit way back when. Okay, the Northridge
Yeah.
earthquake. And some people wanted to walk away from their house. And, I had somebody screaming at me. And I said, it doesn't work that way. We replace the dwelling. That's it. Okay. And your stuff. It's not about buying your house out. It's right, replacing what you lost. And a lot of people don't realize that, or don't want to realize that. And on top of it, it's just like, it's like having a death in the family. A place you loved, it is part of your family, no matter how you say it, the house is part of that.
Yeah.
So people have to deal with all that and process that to decide what they want to actually do. I mean, what's really interesting is those houses that are going to be by the beach there in Malibu. I mean, these 5 and 8 and $10 million places, and I'm going to guarantee you they don't cost that much to rebuild.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to get them rebuilt, but it's going to be years, just years before, even with California saying they're going to reduce red tape, I think it's going to be years before it gets back to where it was before.
Oh yeah. Even if they reduce the red tape and put a pause on California Coastal Commission, there's still not nearly enough contractors or supplies to be able to meet even a fraction of the demand. So even if all of the red tape is lifted, just the amount of homes and the work, and then, so many of those were such large homes that
Mm-hmm.
take, 2 years to build, just one of those under normal circumstances. So yeah,
But now you have 10,000.
yeah.
Oh, it's going to be something interesting. So I tell you what, I do want to talk a little bit about that. A quick little recap of 24, what we're looking at 25. Let's talk about the impacts of your view with the fires. Um, have you, you know what? Have you ever talked about like I'm going to bet there's already scammers out there. They're trying to take advantage of people with rebuilding and stuff like that. Do you have any knowledge about that at all?
Um, I know there was so like let me see if I can pull up real quick. I heard let me see, ADU correct. There was a contractor that was specializing in ADUs that ran off with I think like 30 people's money. So one of the things, let's see. Oh wow, okay, it's more than I thought. So this just had recently come out. A contractor that was supposed to be specializing in ADUs. It says that there's over 100 people now that have filed lawsuits against him. He took off with over $15 million. So what he was doing was getting people to they would finance the ADU, but they were getting the financing and then all of the money was going to him. And then he was supposed to complete the project, which, you never pay a contractor up front. You pay them as you hit benchmarks.
Mhm.
So that's a scam that, I know 100% has
Wow.
always been going on. And yeah, this article just came out
So I'm going to
beginning.
bet that guy's in some other country right now.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he's some other country that doesn't extradite, I'm sure.
Well, it's a financial crime. It's not like he shot somebody or something like that. So, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
15 million in that they know of so far, 15 million in loans that were paid to him that he's disappeared with.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So
So
the
let's talk about some of that stuff to give some people help because this is going to run in about a week and it's going to be perfect timing for what's going on.
perfect.
Um, so let me go ahead and get started. And where's the record button? Thank you. Hey, Cameron, we're going to get started with Glen Henderson, episode 217. Um, wow, 217 up there. Okay, let's see. Let's go with this. Perfect. Okay. Hello, welcome to the Saving with Steve show where we talk about the ins and outs of money. Pretty much everything under the sun relates to you having a happy, healthy relationship with money. My name is Steve Saxton. I want to thank you for joining us. We have somebody special. We have Glen Henderson. He's been in the real estate business for decades. He's very, very, very well respected. He's been on the show before. You know what? We're going to be talking about what happened in 2024 with real estate and here in 2025, but we're also going to be talking about, you know what, people looking to rebuild, all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about that and things you need to know in case, so you don't get scammed after a tragedy, because the reality, it happens more often than you think. And with that, Glenn, I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Always good to be here.
Well, definitely, definitely. Our viewers and our listeners love it. You know what? Besides that, if you are selling, I've got Glenn. He's going to go through his 5 components of selling your house for the most amount of money. And you know what? And I'm gonna say this. There's many people who've just downloaded that one item from our podcast, and we continue to get responses. So we love it. Now, Glenn, let's talk about, what occurred with real estate real quickly here in 2024,
Yeah.
and then we can go into the rest.
Perfect. So 2024, biggest thing that biggest thing that people felt was the increase in mortgage rates that we had. We hit a peak where we were in the mid to upper 7% range, and we have come back down and broke back into the 6%. Today I think we're at right around 6.75. But it was basically a roller coaster of ups and downs with the interest rates. But what was interesting is a lot of markets, we still saw home prices going up, not at the levels that we had before, but we saw gradual increases, and it was due to the lack of inventory. And
Mhm.
I think we still have over 90% or 91% of homeowners that have mortgages under 6%. So because of that, a lot of people aren't making transitions or what we would normally call like our move up or move down buyers. They're
Mhm.
not making those moves. So it's really a lot of the sales are either forced, situations of death, divorce, debt. People are too overwhelmed in debt, and they need to just be sell to, or people are relocating. So if it's not a life event, people aren't making the transitions, and that's keeping the inventory really low. And so that combination of the low inventory is still pushing prices up. And that's created a situation where we have the lowest affordability index. So basically, people being able to afford their homes that we've had ever since that's been tracked.
Okay. So here's another question. My understanding is the state was really looking to push home development.
Mhm.
They're looking to do the projects and all that kind of stuff. Has that been stymied because of regulation, or it just takes a lot to get homeowners, not, what do you say? Um, who are the companies that like
Builders?
builders?
Yeah.
Yes.
So most of the regulation or the lifting of the red tape and the regulations they put in place is it affects builders that are developing rental units, so apartment buildings, and then most of those projects, if they have a certain percentage, which I think is around 15%, that are dedicated to low income housing, then they're able to build additional units. But majority of those are apartments. So we're, seeing a little bit of an increase in available units, but it's as far as actual for home ownership, the regulations aren't impacting that nearly the same, and there's just still a shortage of homes.
Okay. So I was really curious about that. So, um, So basically, we are now. Let's talk a little bit about. I know prices are still going up a little bit. So when it comes to the foreclosure and short sale market, now that interest rates are high and people don't have the ability, or they can't afford to refinance just because the rates are so much higher. They're three times higher than they were just a few years ago. Are we seeing more foreclosures, short sales? Are they starting to tick up?
We're not to that point yet, but what we are seeing is an increase in defaults. So an increase in the number of people that are behind. But it's not just on mortgages. So credit card and consumer debt is at an all-time high. But also the default rate on auto loans, consumer debt, credit card debt, all across the board defaults are on their way up, or they're increasing right now. Uh, we still have our short sale business, which from the last crash. And what I've noticed is we've been getting a lot more inquiries over the last about month and a half, 2 months, but the majority of them are people looking for options to try and complete a loan modification. So right now we're at what I feel is the earlier stage. People are they're burdened with a lot of debt. They're starting to fall behind on some of their consumer debt. Typically, the last thing somebody will stop paying on is their mortgage. But people are burdened with debt. They're starting to fall behind, and people don't want to lose their homes because, if they do lose it, one, you have to find somewhere new. It's your home, but rents are high, interest rate, prices, everything's high. So even if you lose the current home, where do you go from there? So people are trying to find solutions to keep their homes right now. So we're in the what I feel the early stage. Everyone's looking for options. Everyone's looking for ways to try and keep in their home. But
Hmm.
I think, these people where they're trying to do loan modifications now, the banks are not doing loan modifications. So it's almost impossible to get one through. So then these are the people that maybe in another 6 months, 10 months, a year, we will see in a situation where they may be needing to short sale or foreclose, or, they'll still have enough equity where they can sell it, but they're going to have to put their home on the market. And that's going to be one of those life event sales where it's debt is, forcing the sale.
I see. Okay. So, all right. So
Because
real
that
estate's
big
a,
run up that we had on the in prices over these last 3-4 years, a lot of people still have a lot of equity in their homes. So that's why one of the reasons why we're not seeing as many of the short sales or foreclosures right now is because so many people do have equity. But it's the people that bought in the last 2 years, which I think we'll start to see more of those coming up in the upcoming year, 2 years. As some of the more of the short sales and the foreclosures.
okay. So yeah, it seems like a lot of that stuff's starting to go, and well, I hate to say it with the doom side, but in a matter of months, 6 to 8 months, maybe the end of the year, we could be there and seeing um, I don't want to say a vibrant foreclosure but short sale market, but we could be seeing that just because the rates are so high.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we'll at least see a lot more of them coming on the market.
okay, perfect. Um, let's see. Hey, folks. Hey, I want you to stick with us. We're gonna be right back with more Glenn Henderson and what's going on in the real estate market. Perfect. Okay, cool. Let's see. Um, so current levels. Okay, so next, let's just talk about. I would like to start out with your experience, if that's okay. You don't have to mention customer's name about you're going to do an inspection and this is what happened, and then start walking into the fire. Okay,
Okay.
and basically, um, what I'd like to do is just you know start talking about the fire. You know what? Um, was it I'll talk about some of the experience I've had with my clients and what they're dealing with. In fact, one of them is up there in the area, and his son's part of the fire department, and they got called in and was told to stop and go back home because they didn't have any equipment, they didn't have water. So it was very interesting there. And on top of that, um, um, I just, you know what, I'd like to, we can talk about, I don't want to get too much into the devastation and anything like that, but I'd like to talk about things that people need to be thinking about. And then we can start talking about, hey, when you have these disasters, we don't have enough contractors. So contractors are coming in from another area. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can we start with that? Okay, great. All right, perfect. All right, here we go. All right, so Cameron, we're going to do segment 2 with Glenn Henderson. Here we go. Hello, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show, where we talk about the ins and outs of money. I truly want to thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you for letting us, letting your friends, family, and associates know about the show. Again, I hope your 2025 is just kicking off to a wonderful new year. You can get all the replays at savingwithsteve.us. If you're enjoying the stories of helpful information and insight on Saving with Steve, then I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Never miss a show. Check out a few of our affiliates at UK Health Radio, BBS Radio, Talk Radio New York City, E360 TV, and Las Vegas TV networks. All these networks are dedicated to empowering you to solve problems, uplift your spirit, and live a life of personal and financial freedom. Hey, Glenn, welcome back to the show, everybody. We're talking to Glenn Henderson, real estate expert. You know what? I'm just gonna, Glenn was sharing before the show started about a situation where he had to go up to the Los Angeles area to do an inspection. So tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, so we did have an inspection scheduled for property in LA. Unfortunately, it's being affected by the fires, the Palisade fire. They're in Brentwood. Very fortunately, this home hasn't burned, and it looks like they're going to make it through okay. But yeah, that was going to be an inspection and pre-inspection for one of our clients, getting their home on the market. The pre-inspections we always like to do just to find out about any issues, potential issues or problems that could come up during the actual home sale. So by doing the inspection up front, then we're able to identify those problems and address them if needed, or at least disclose them to the buyers up front so that they're not an issue when we get into escrow.
Hmm. So, you know what, and here's the other thing. You know what, I have a few clients, and I'm just going to share this. They're in the Palisades area. Both of them live a couple streets over from each other, and they were told to evacuate. And they were about a, quarter mile walking distance from their house, and they just watched their house burned. And the fire was so hot and the winds were so high that he said, he goes, it was 10, 12, maybe 15 minutes, and that house was gone. And then another client had lost their house. It's just a few streets over. The other thing that was interesting is one of the people I was talking to was up in the area. When I was talking to him, they got an evacuation notification, and they also explained to me that their son-in-law was a firefighter, and he got called in, but also got told to go home because they didn't have enough equipment and didn't know where they were going to get the water from because they didn't have enough water, which is very, very interesting. And as a result of these fires, we saw what, 10,000 plus homes that were burnt to the ground. Is that
Yeah,
somewhere around there, or maybe even more?
probably even more. Yeah.
But the big thing, so Glenn, could you talk people through, you know what, California is notorious for so much regulation that slows things down tremendously. So let's could give everybody an idea. I just think my lucky stars that my house isn't there, and that I don't have to go through this. But could you give everybody an idea of what they're really looking at here, from the way of trying to rebuild, that's regulation stuff and so on?
Yeah. So you've got the normal, all of the building, permitting and every that process that you need to go through, which in California is a nightmare, especially in the larger cities. But then also there's California Coastal Commission, which will have oversight over a lot of these properties, which California Coastal Commission is uh, an entity that a lot of us feel should not be in place, or if it is in place, they've overstepped what their initial purpose was, but they create a lot of issues for people trying to build. And then once you get through that entire permitting process, there's going to be a real challenge for people to find contractors because we already had such a shortage in labor and contractors if you were, before this happened. So now that we've got, 10,000 plus people that are going to be trying to rebuild homes, there's going to be a backlog of years of people trying to get through projects. And the big problem or concern is that anytime there's something like this, a natural disaster or anything, there's so many scammers and people that come out of the woodwork. And even in a normal environment, you and I were briefly talking about in San Diego, there's a contractor that was supposed to be specializing in ADUs. He was getting people to take out loans on their properties to build the ADU, and he disappeared with over 100 families' money, over $15 million, and he's left the country and disappeared, and now on the wanted list. And that's just in a normal market. So now that we have this natural disaster, we have people are going to be desperate to rebuild their emotions, everything else. There's going to be a lot of unscrupulous people, I feel like, that are going to be trying to take advantage of people, and one of them is going to be contractors or fake contractors that are going to be trying to take people's money. So I think people are just going to need to be very diligent and be watching, just double checking everything, whether it's insurance related contractor, anything else. There's going to be people that are trying to take advantage of the situation, unfortunately.
Glenn, I know you've done a number of things through contractors for people who are about to sell their house or buy a house. If somebody's looking at a contractor, especially in these times,
Yeah.
you know what? We all know there's a race to get the house done and get back to where normal, and that's going to be a while. And sometimes that clouds judgment, emotion clouds judgment. But what are the things that people should be looking for or checking, regardless of who is the contractor?
Yeah. So, of course, if you're able to get a referral or talk to somebody or talk to people that this contractor's worked for and, see the projects or verify that they've completed projects, you definitely want to check the state, the California Contractors Board, to verify that they have an active license that's they don't have any violations, penalties, or and that they carry all the proper insurance on it. And then most importantly is when you sign the contract, a contractor should never be asking for money up front. Per their the California laws, they cannot collect more than I think it's $1,000 up front. But the payments that take place should be as they hit benchmarks and work has been completed. You should never be prepaying for any type of work. It should only be paid as they hit certain tiers or benchmarks of work completed, and then you're paying for what was done. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble is the contractors ask for these large deposits and a lot of money up front, and then once they collect that money, they disappear.
Now, when somebody's actually doing the work, um, you know what? I'm just going to say this. I know of somebody who said, "Hey, this was my friend did use this person. They did a good job, and so on and so forth." And you know what? They just continue to write the check without inspecting anything to see where it's at. So if there's always this checkpoint where they say, "Hey, we've got this much done. You need to pay us more money," and it's usually in the contract, but you need to go check to make sure that was done. And we had one person that had kept giving money, and the reality is nothing was getting done. They were just giving money, and they didn't check it because they had already trusted that person because it was a friend that gave the referral, that type of thing. So I'm saying, hey, I like Ronald Reagan in this situation: trust but verify.
Yeah. It
Uh,
100% it happens. People would be surprised how often it and how frequently it happens. I mean, the guy that I mentioned in San Diego that was able to take off with $15 million, over $15 million, over 100 people's money. It's just incredible that that many people were willing to, he was able to fool that many people to end up paying him ahead of time. And it just shows like it happens and it happens a lot. So you just have to be very diligent. And like you said, trust but verify.
Well, the interesting thing is that if you think about what it takes to steal 100 people's money and have really nobody say anything about it
Yeah.
until the person's gone, that means the person was really good at what they were doing and really good at placating people.
Yeah.
And you know what? He or she or whoever it was probably had I don't know, he had to do it in what, 30, 45 days
Yeah.
and then run. Otherwise, the people will be all over him by then. So it's really interesting. So you've really got to pay attention, especially in these times. My understanding is they were even catching people who are trying to burglarize and already in the fire areas.
Oh, yeah.
So that's just beyond me how people would steal. But you know what? I don't think that way, and other people's do. So you know what? If you're having people go through the demolishment, um, this is my experience from working at AAA many, many years ago. I would make sure you go through yourself and see if there's things that you can find that have value to you, because you obviously had to leave that house pretty darn fast and weren't able to get things. Like for example, the Olympian who let his metals burn. You know what? I think if he was going back and sifting through things, he'd probably love to get one of those metals back, even though it's not that important. So I'm just saying, look for those things that are important before you allow somebody to go in and demolish things, so to speak, and clear everything out before you get going. So, folks, hey, Glenn, stick with us. We're going to be right back with more Saving with Steve. Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
Um, let's see. Let's see. Could we go through the next segment of what your thoughts are for 2025? How is there any thought to the market? Do they think rates are going to continue, will go down or anything like that? And then I'd like to talk about, the things that people, what are the things that you guys do to help people's houses sell for the most amount of money?
Yeah. And with the most amount of money, do you mean going through those 5 steps or do you just want to talk? Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's the one everybody wants.
Perfect.
Okay, here we go. Hello, welcome back to the Saving with Steve show. We're back here with Glen Henderson. We've talked about 2024. We've talked about the fires and how to protect yourself from scamming contractors and others. And now let's talk a little bit about how 2025 looks with the real estate market. And then you know what? It's really important if you're going to sell your house to sell it for the most amount of money. But more importantly is take the step to make sure it's in a position for the sell the most amount of money. And we have Glenn looking to share 5 good steps with that. So Glenn, let's talk about, 2025. So what are we looking at for 2025? Are we expected to see rate reductions? What are we looking at?
So the forecast for mortgage rates are mixed depending on the economist or the group that puts together. I, but overall, the general consensus is that we'll see the ebbs and flows, but we're not going to see a big drop in interest rates in 2025 based on where we're at still with inflation, cost of consumer goods, everything else. It doesn't line up that we're going to see any big decrease in the mortgage rates. Um, excuse me. As far as home prices, I think it's going to be very region specific. Some areas that are more affordable, I think we'll still see, and it's forecasted that we'll still see some moderate growth and appreciation. Other markets, we're seeing a decrease in prices. Others are remaining stable. So a lot of it just depends on the location or region, and then just the affordability and where prices are right now. For example, with San Diego, because of the problem or the lack of inventory and housing that's available. And now, especially with the number of people that have been displaced in LA, it's expected that we will see appreciation in our market this year, similar to last year where it's going to be a few percent, but we will see, some continued growth where other markets were, are experiencing a drop in prices because income and people coming into the market and buying, this demand isn't high enough to meet what current prices are. So they're feeling the pressure of the high rates and the continual it's 6-7% rates.
Now, when it comes to all these displaced people, is that would you expect that to impact the rental market? Um,
Yeah.
you know, I would think it would if you got 10,000 new people, but what would that mean for rents?
Yeah. So it's 100% it's going to affect the rental market. And there's going to be, I feel, there's not enough housing in LA for all of these people. So I feel, a lot will probably end up in other parts of the country. A lot will come south to Orange County or San Diego, or maybe going north up to Bay Area. But it's going to put pressure on the rental market, which, most what you would expect that we're going to see prices going up. Right now, what they're dealing with is a lot of people are trying to, people meaning landlords and property managers are trying to take advantage of the situation, and they're jacking rental rates up, exponentially. But LA's been very clear that, they're going to be going after those people because there's the state laws that, that prohibit price gouging, and the most that somebody can increase cost of goods is 10% in the time of a natural disaster or an emergency. So these people that are increasing, doubling what they were asking for rent, 2 weeks ago, I think those people are going to run into a lot of problem because LA, the sheriff and mayor have been very clear that they're going to be going after those people for it. But I think just naturally we are going to see an increase in rent throughout the whole region.
I see. Okay. And then, you know what? One of the big things is whether you're, here in Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County, anywhere in the United States, if you're looking to sell for whatever reason, the key is to always be prepared or put yourself in a position to sell your house for the most amount of money. And, Glenn and his team have this wonderful process, these 5 steps, the 5 items that you're going to want to go through and you're going to want to do in order to put your house in a position to sell for the most amount of money. So, Glenn, could you walk through our listeners with that, please?
Yeah. So first is the pre-inspection. So when you sell your home, the buyers have a contingency period where they're going to come in, do inspections, bring in home inspector, termite inspector, probably sewer line or septic inspection, and they're going to try and find anything wrong with the home and then use that as a point to negotiate either credits, ask for repairs, or they could potentially cancel because a big item is found. So we like to do a pre-inspection. So at the pre-inspection, we have a home inspector come in, termite inspector, sewer or septic line inspections. and basically do what the buyers would do once we get into escrow and find any potential issues, problems, and then determine is this something that we need to address and fix ahead of time, or do we just need to know it's there so we can properly disclose it to the buyer before we negotiate the contract? And then that way there's no surprises once we get into escrow. Because basically the whole objective is to eliminate surprises.
So let's talk about that one thing.
Mhm.
Um, you know what? I still remember the first time I sold a house, and obviously we didn't really do that.
Mhm.
And we ended up, because of a small termite exposure, and we're talking about, this much, besides getting it fumigated for changing out the board for 300 bucks, it cost me $5,000 on the price of the house.
Yeah.
And all for that. And if I had just had that taken care of in advance, it would have saved me 5,000. And this is something that people need to look at all the time, because you just lose money if you're not paying attention to this. So this is one wonderful first step that somebody should take.
Yeah. And the second is staging slash preparing the home for the market. So with that, staging doesn't just mean bringing in furniture if it's a vacant home, but staging, what I mean is working on curb appeal. So this could be pressure washing the home, painting the eaves, redoing the landscaping in the front yard, or at least cleaning up, decluttering inside. There's a lot of steps just to preparing the home and making it look as good as possible and getting it market ready. A lot of times what we'll do if somebody's living in their home, advise them on what to take out as far as the decluttering process. And then sometimes we'll take out old furniture, have a new couch or something smaller that fits the room better brought in. Because a lot of times, what shows the best in the home isn't always what's most practical or comfortable for living in the home. So, you might have that extra large sofa in the living room that's, great to lounge on and comfortable, but it's, maybe too big for the room and makes the room feel smaller. So let's take that out and bring in an appropriately sized couch for the purpose of the sale.
Oh, that's good because and I could see that because I knew somebody who had an English garden in the front, and it just really looked like a messy weeds, but they loved it.
Mhm.
And they really didn't get anybody that looked at their house until they actually removed all that and put in hedges and made it look tight and neat and stuff like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah,
That curb appeal is a big deal.
it is. And especially right now where home prices are high and interest rates are so high, people don't want a home that's going to be a project that they're going to have to put more money into. So if we can make it show really well, take care of the small items, fix things up, it's going to attract a lot more buyers. And then the third is pricing. So with pricing, one of the questions I get often is, well, why don't we start higher so we have room to negotiate? And a lot of times that's counterproductive because if a home is priced too high, what you run into is then buyers have access to all the information. They see that all the other homes in the area or on the street are selling at a certain price, and then you're priced 10% higher. Those homes aren't getting shown, especially now with rates being so high. So then you're basically negotiating against yourself and you're having to do price reductions. And the most active or yeah, the most activity and the best time or most productive time is the first 2 weeks that the home's on the market. So if you're priced too high and you're not capturing the buyers, then you're just chasing the market down. And if you price a home accurately or even a little bit aggressively, meaning a little bit below market value, and you market it well, you're going to be in a position that you have multiple offers, and you're going to be in a position then where you're negotiating the price up, and that's how you're going to get the highest price for the home.
That's great. I've heard I've talked to a few of your clients, and they're very, very happy with that. When you have 6 or 7 people bidding on your same house, it just keeps going up and up and up. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
And
and I was going to say that's the time where when you have the bidding and people competing, that's when people's emotions are involved. People meaning the buyers. They've fallen in love with the home, they can see their family there, and then they're at that position where, okay, well, if we spend a little bit more, in price, we can get it. And when you have emotions involved, people are willing to go up, and that's why it's why this strategy works so well is, you have that, and then people are just, naturally competitive and they want to win. So emotions are involved, they're competitive, they want to win, they want to get the property, and then you just watch that price get bid up. It's a great position to be in instead of doing price reductions and only having one offer that's, 100,000 below what you had listed it for because they think they're going to get a deal.
You know what? It's interesting that you say that because I have a neighbor, oh, I'm going to say 8, 9 months ago, um, with a, I heard him fighting out in the front yard over the price that he wanted to list the house at. And they went back and forth, and the realtor just finally says, "Look, you really got to trust me here because if it's too high, nobody's going to come, nobody's going to see it." And then he finally said, okay, fine. And he actually priced the house at about $50,000 less than what market was. And they had 8 offers and ended up selling for $100,000 more than he thought it would go for.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and he kept telling me, he goes, hey, he
Yeah.
was right. So, yeah, that's a great strategy. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
So,
It works. And then fourth is the marketing. So a lot of agents are very passive in the sense that, they'll put it on the internet, put a sign in the front yard, maybe do an open house, and then just wait to see what happens. Where you want to make sure that the person that's representing the sale is very proactive with the marketing. So we have a strategy of once we get the home prepared and ready for the market, we have our pre-listing phase or and pre-market phase where, for a week we're marketing the home before we even start to show it. So we'll go on the market on a Monday. That whole week we're pushing the property out through social media, mail, different media channels to get as many eyes and as much interest in the property as possible. And then we'll start showing it that weekend at the open house. So we have a strategy behind everything that we do, but that strategy is to aggressively market the home, get it in front of as many people as possible. So that way, when we do start showing it, we have a very productive and busy Saturday and Sunday. And again, going back to kind of the psychology of buyers and people, if you do everything correct and we condense the showings into that weekend, that first weekend, and you have a lot of people there, everyone sees, wow, there's a lot of interest in this home. There's, I need to hurry up and get an offer in before, this other person does. But also, too, it helps people to internally confirm that it's a good decision because if somebody else wants it, and somebody else is willing to pay that price, it must be a good deal. So it's okay for me to want it. And it's again going kind of back to the psychology of people and buyers. So there's a strategy, and you want to make sure you have somebody that's aggressively and actively marketing the property to get as much exposure as possible.
that's great. That's great. So what's the last step?
And the last one is the negotiating. So we talked about the pre-inspection, and when you have a contract, and you go into contract with the buyer, really there's 2 points of negotiation. So you have the first point when you're negotiating the price. So the marketing, the strategy to create a situation where we have multiple offers and we're able to get the property bid up. But the second point of negotiation is once you're in escrow and then the buyers do all their inspections. So if we've done everything correctly, we did the inspections up front, we've disclosed everything before we went into contract with the buyers, we basically eliminate that second point of negotiations
Hmm.
and eliminate that opportunity for them to ask for the big price reductions or credits or these other items. And but the big thing is you want to make sure you have somebody that's willing to put in the extra work, put in the extra steps, and willing to negotiate for you and make sure you get top dollar in the best terms possible. Because you'd be amazed how many deals we see where sellers are advised to just take the first offer that comes in or advised not to counter, be happy with the terms that they got. And I would say, we could pull up 100 homes right now, and I would say at least 30, 40%, maybe 50%. We could go through and they probably could have got, another few percent in price if things had been done correctly and followed all these steps that we talked about. But the negotiating is definitely a big part, and you need somebody that's going to be aggressively doing that for you.
And let's see, when it comes to negotiating, the process is usually somebody puts an offer in and then they counter. how many times is realistic for people to go back and forth depending on what's there? I mean, if you have a clean house and nothing needs to be fixed, is how often would people go back and forth?
So if So it kind of depends, but if all of these steps are taken, it goes the way we expect, where we have the situation of multiple offers. Usually there'll be one, two off counter offers. Sellers will counter asking for highest and best. Buyers will come back with, their price. Then we'll identify, okay, who are our top two or three. Then there'll be maybe one more counter. So I would say on average, two, two counter offers.
Okay. Okay. So that should give everybody an idea. Hey, just expect this.
Yeah,
Because if the more you understand what's happening, the easier it is. Because I mean, quite frankly, my wife hates the negotiation thing.
yeah. A lot of people do, which is understandable.
Yeah, but if you understand what's going on, you're like, okay, this is happening now. Oh, I'm good with this. This is happening again. Okay, I'm good with this.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so good, good. So folks, if you want to get a hold of Glenn, best way to get a hold of Glenn is this. How do people get a hold of you, Glenn?
Yes, so phone number is 619-500-3222. And then our website is mypremierhomes.com.
Thanks, Glenn. Hey, Glenn, thank you so much for being with us today, sharing the information that you've shared. This has been wonderful. I want to thank you. Everybody, stick with us. We'll be right back with more Saving with Steve. Let's
Thanks,
see.
Steve.
Hold on a second. Pause. Perfect. Okay. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you for sharing all the stuff, especially that thing about the EDUs, because I want people to think, because was it before Christmas, I had a guy that worked with MI5 or MI6. He does like dark web security.
Yeah.
He went out and gave the 12 biggest scams and what they actually do and how they operate. And you know what, it was really a big eye opener for a lot of our listeners. But this is also very, very, very timely. So this is going to be put out. Actually, it'll go out next week. So I'm going to bet we're going to have some more issues with the fires here shortly, and because of the winds. But it should be out next week and it'll be very timely.
You know what? Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on. And you just made me think of something. I'll get some information. There might be, especially since you had that person from the intelligence agency and it was well received. People enjoyed that one. One of the scams that's going around now is the scammers are identifying, it's mainly they're doing it with vacant land, but also in areas that have a lot of vacation homes or second homes. They're identifying properties. They create fake profiles. So, you have a piece of land here in town. They'll create phone numbers, emails, that's Steve Sexton at outlook.com. They come up with stories how they are out of area, they need to sell the property. And like I have one right now where the guy's story is that he's relocated to Florida. He wanted to get out of California and he wants just a quick closing. But it's becoming really predominant. And I think the
So
title
so what
company,
are, I don't understand what's going on though.
oh, so they're going through and they're selling properties that aren't even theirs.
Oh, but how do
Yeah.
you close on something like that without an escrow?
They run it through escrow title. Um, Mainly the ones that are getting through are with smaller escrow companies, because the bigger companies have more protections in place. But they either have fake IDs that are made, so they'll get an ID made with your information and their photos. So they've tricked the notary, or they have, it's not that hard to get a notary's license, and they fraudulently notarize the documents, and then they're getting the sale done. Like there was one I heard of recently. A guy was driving by his property and just happened to be driving by, and there's grader out there and everything else, and the new owners, the developer had started work on it. So the guy's like, stops, like, what the hell are you guys doing? You're on my property. And they're like, no, this is our property, we bought it. And the police got called, or sheriff's department got called, and the buyers, contractor gets a hold of the buyers. They're like, no, here's all this stuff, we closed escrow on this. And the owner's like, no, this is my property, I never sold it. Another one, an agent was going into his office, and a lot of the ones that have the storefronts have like all the listings in the window.
Mm-hmm.
So he was walking in the office, just kind of looking at the things, and one of the listings in the window was a piece of land that he owned. And so it just pure like random luck that he, worked in the same office as an agent that had, got contacted by one of these scammers and was listing the land. Palm Springs, it's happening a lot, and they're doing it with a lot of second homes because they know the
Mm-hmm.
homes are vacant. With it. But I think there's a protection that the title companies will let you put on your property for free where like you register like your name, phone number, everything else. And then that way, if there's anything that's, any like a title order is opened or anything else, and you get notified right away. But that'd be something that's free and something that would be interesting for people. And it's a very relevant scam that's happening right now.
Wow. Could we um record that? Could
Yeah,
we?
let me get a little more information and I'll get the
Yeah.
information on the on like what the title companies can do so that you're protected. And then we could do one, next week or something. But this would be a really good one because it's very relevant. It's happening right now. Um,
Yes, please. Actually, I have I do like a 4 or 5 minute economic type thing, and I do them on scams and all sorts of stuff that are relevant at the time. I'd love to just for 10 minutes, and I'm just, hey, it's a in it's my little money minute segment thing. I'd just love to do that, and then I post it on our Facebook and everything so everybody would see it. I appreciate that.
yeah,
So
I'll get the information on the that protection that the title companies offer, and then we can do one on it. It's a really good one. So
okay, cool. I appreciate it very, very much. I'll tell you what, you take it easy. Thank you so much for this. And everything going well with you guys?
yeah, everything's going great. Actually, you know what? Sarah and I were talking about it at the end of the year. Maybe once oh, what's the life insurance? We just last year was our fifth year, so we're now done
Hmm.
paying for that, which is great. But whenever they get the statements out for
Let's go review it.
2024, yeah, if we could do a recap or just a review on that, that would be great.
Okay. I'll look at when the payment dates are, and the review should happen right around that time.
Yeah, our last payments were due in November. We did our
Okay.
last payments, so
Okay. So we should be getting statements here shortly.
yeah,
So once I get them, I'll be on the line with you. Okay.
perfect. That sounds good.
Hey, you take it easy. Say hi to Sarah for me.
We'll do. Thanks, Steve.